I'm Atif.
Hi, I'm Christina.
Hello, I'm Shahira.
Hi, I'm Adam. The pandemic has led to numerous efforts to contain the virus. Application that traces contact with COVID-19 infected individuals offers advice on how to prevent infections. The study investigated factors that can influence the SBPI Gombak citizen willingness to use MySejahtera application that traces contact with COVID-19 diagnosed individuals. According to Warif et al., despite previous researches done by academians, questions still remains about the factors that influence citizens' uptake of COVID-19 contact tracing applications. Therefore, the aim of our research is to identify factors that influence individuals' intention to use a COVID-19 application by adopting the health belief model's perspective. The health belief model states that in response to a threat, an individual's health behavior is determined by two cognitive processes. First, how severe one assesses the consequences of a threat, and second, how efficient and feasible a protection behavior is. Our study will focus on 4 research questions below. First, does one's perceived susceptibility or perceived risk of contracting COVID-19 leads to inclination to adopt tracing apps such as MySejahtera? Second, does one's perceived benefits of using MySejahtera leads to willingness to use the app? Third, does the current debate on the protection of app users' privacy forms perceived barriers to adopt the app? And lastly, does potential differences in genders, age, and education determines one's willingness to adopt MySejahtera?
Researches done by academicians on COVID-19 tracing app can be traced back to as early as year 2020, as most of the tracing apps were only introduced by different countries in that particular year after the virus declared as pandemic. Most of these researchers focus more on contact tracing and symptom tracking systems, and some researchers concentrated on the association between app usage and the epidemiological spread of the virus. Some studies have focused more on the difference between apps implemented in several countries. Some other previous study has analyzed the legal or ethical aspect of COVID-19 tracing apps from data protection and legal perspective. Moving on to our conceptual definition. Conceptual definition means the identification of the term used in the study, which in turn becomes the pillar of the study itself. The terminology used in the study do not need to be elaborated literally by word. Conceptual definition also determines the scope of the study. For our first definition, which is COVID-19, coronavirus disease is an infectious disease caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Most people infected with the virus will experience mild to moderate respiratory illness and recover without requiring special treatment. However, some of them will become seriously ill, especially those with underlying medical condition. For our second definition, which is the tracing apps are technological artifacts that apply process of identifying all people that a COVID-19 patient has come in contact with in the last 2 weeks. It is also an IoT tool that manages the system to identify cases and much more. The health belief model is the most appropriate model to be used as a theoretical framework for this topic, as it posits optimal behavior changes of the users if they successfully target perceived barriers, benefits, self-efficacy, and threat. In the context of COVID-19, the health belief model states that in response to a threat, an individual's health behavior is determined by 2 cognitive processes. The figure represents the theoretical framework of how items in the adopted questionnaire were designed in the first place by Michael Warif.
Moving on to Chapter 3, which is the research methodology applied in this study. Our study was conducted online involving teachers and students of SBP Integrasi Gombak. An online survey using Google Form was administered to respondents aged 13 to 64 years old. 50 respondents from SBP Integrasi Gombak were randomly chosen from different backgrounds and forms. The sampling represents 10% of the total population of the school denizens. According to Rahi et al. 2019, a good maximum sample size is usually around 10% of the total population. The data from the questionnaire were descriptively analyzed using the statistical program IBM SPSS version 24. Next is the research instrument. In this quantitative study, the research instrument used is a set of questionnaire. It is adopted from a validated questionnaire used by Michael Warrave, a PhD researcher from Group MILS, Faculty of Social Sciences, University of Antwerp in 2020. The type of scale used is the Likert scale, and response levels ranging from negative to positive. Moving on is the measures taken in the questionnaire. The HBM constructs were measured following Champion's recommendations. All answers were on 5-point Likert scales ranging from disagree to agree. Perceived susceptibility was measured with 3 items to assess the respondents' views on how likely a COVID-19 infection will affect them. Perceived severity was assessed with 3 items investigating how serious respondents assessed the consequences for their health of a COVID-19 infection to be. In total, 6 items measured the benefits respondents find in using the COVID-19 app. Based on the current debates about COVID-19 app, 2 items measured perceived barriers. This construct focused on how privacy issues raised by the app and how it could contribute to tensions among students with a different COVID-19 status. Next, 3 items were designed to capture self-efficacy, which is the respondents' own assessment of how easy it would be for them to use the app. In addition, the respondents' gender, status in institution, and also educational level were asked. This study would only analyze the data from descriptive point of view, such as frequency, mean, and standard deviation only, due to the limitation of time and research scale. Moving on to the research findings, as mentioned before, the questionnaire was given out to 50 respondents via an online Google form. 8 respondents are from among teachers, whereas 42 are students of different levels or batches, as shown in the table. Let's look at the findings on perceived susceptibility of COVID-19. The first item assessed is, I am at risk of being infected by the COVID-19 virus. Most of the respondents opt for neither agree nor disagree. The second item assessed is, it is likely that I would suffer from the COVID-19 virus. Majority also opted for neither agree nor disagree. The third item assessed is, it is possible that I could be infected by the COVID-19 virus. 38% also opt for neither agree nor disagree. Referring to items PSU1, PSU2, and PSU3, respondents have diverse perceptions towards perceived susceptibility of COVID-19. However, the data findings reflect that most respondents opt for neither agree nor disagree.
Greetings, I'm Atif and we're going to continue on with the research findings on perceived benefits of MySector app. For the first item, most participants strongly agree. For the second item, nearly 90% of the respondents are on the agreement spectrum. For the third item, the majority too agree on this. On the fourth item, over 80% of the respondents agree. And for the fifth and sixth item, nearly 90% of the respondents agree. Next, for the perceived barriers of MySector study, for the first item, many respondents neither agree nor disagree, followed by 32% on the disagreement spectrum and only 20% agree. For the second item, the majority disagreed as 48% of the respondents disagreed. 38% was undecisive and only 40% agreed. And lastly, for the self-efficacy during COVID-19 study, 88% of the respondents agreed on the first item. For the second item, only 78% agreed, and for the third item, 94% agreed. For the summary of the research findings, we noticed that perceived susceptibility did not have significant influence on the uptake of MySector, despite strong belief on the perceived severity of COVID-19. Why? Probably because government's movement control order that requires schools to be temporarily closed, thus leading teachers and students to think that they are less susceptible to COVID-19. How about their uptake on perceived barriers? It did not have any significant influence and the respondents wasn't too concerned regarding security and privacy. A reasonable explanation would be that 84% of the respondents are students, and the government of Malaysia had taken multiple initiatives to convince the public to use MySector. So what's making the respondents use MySector? Even with the perceived barriers, well, the efficacy of the app was made clear by the government, resulting to the respondents who believe that MySector is beneficial. Self-efficacy during COVID-19 is another reason why students and teachers of SBPI Integrasi Gombak opted to uptake MySector app. Adequate knowledge and resources are really important to make an app successful, particularly MySejahtera, which is used to combat COVID-19 in this country.